Welcome into the second episode of Conversations with Chris and Cameron, and we did not expect to make a podcast tonight. Like it
No,
was
we did not.
shocking and unexpected, but Vince Marrow is heading to Louisville, and I got word about this literally like 10 or 15 minutes before Pete Thamel tweeted out. Of course, ESPN Pete Thamel tweeted out, and it was shocking. And of course, it's a big news shaking up the Kentucky football program. And he's been around the UK football program since basically Mark Stoops took over at UK. I think he's been there for 12 or 13 years, and it's just crazy, right, Cameron?
Oh, it's absolutely insane. It was I mean, I'm not even just a Kentucky fans because he's a known name at this point. He's one of the highest paid assistants in college football. So it was really like groundbreaking offseason news across the whole sports. It was wild.
You're not wrong. And like you said, he's one of the highest paid assistants. I believe he's making, whenever he was at UK, I believe he was making over 1 million. And usually most assistants don't even make that much. Usually they're making six figures, 500, 600,000, but not, seven figures where he'll be making over 1 million. And of course, Vince Marrow, he has taken over at Louisville, expected finalizing a 3-year deal reported by Pete Thamel, and he will eventually become the GM for Louisville under Jeff Brom. And, Jeff Brom and Vince Merrill, they go way back. And, at least, it is a rival, but he is staying in state. So I feel like, it won't be that bad of a move for him. And honestly, if he wanted to, he could commute from Lexington to Louisville, but he probably won't do that because, that's over an hour drive. But he is staying in state, and I wish him the best, and we'll see what happens, with Merrill. And I'm afraid that Louisville might be the drums off of Kentucky this upcoming year, like they did in Kroger Field this past year.
Yeah, I'd say with that, I don't know the exact numbers of the contract that he's getting, but I'd say he'll not have to worry about commuting from Lexington to Louisville. He'll probably get him a nice house out there. But um, yeah, I would just say like you said, obviously not a ton of optimism about the Kentucky team this year, and I mean not even before the move. There wasn't a whole lot of like faith in kind of beating Louisville. It was maybe going to be another year of losing to them.
Mhm.
Um, but the thing for me, this was my immediate thought when this happened, because the Satterfield era, the end of the Petrino era, Vince just took over Louisville
Yeah,
recruiting.
not
And he
wrong.
was just taking everybody from Louisville, getting them in the blue and white. And then Jeff Brom started to even it out a little bit. They
Mhm.
will never let another player leave Louisville again. That duo, recruiting wise, will absolutely run the 502. And that was my immediate thought. I was like, well, there's been good talent out of Louisville the last couple of years, and
Mhm.
we won't be seeing them leave, I don't think.
Yeah, you're
And
not.
I know, yeah, like you said, it was Mark Stoops' right hand man. He was with him for 12 years, I believe it was. And yeah, it was just shocking. I mean, there's been the speculation of Michigan, Michigan State,
Mhm.
even Louisville at times. And like you said, he's good friends with Jeff Brom, and he tried to get him to Purdue before
Mhm.
Louisville multiple times. He finally gets it done, and I think that's probably a lesson we can take from it is just never give up, because he just kept going, and it ended up working out for him. So,
Yeah,
wild move though.
yeah, you're not wrong. And I mean, previously, I don't know, it was probably like 5, 6, 7 years ago now, but he almost, like you said, left to go to Michigan, to be under Harbaugh. And surprisingly, he didn't. Everybody thought he was gone. And, I think one of the reasons why he stayed was because UK was still doing well. They were either, performing up to standard at the time with 6 or 7 wins every year, or also overperforming, getting to 10 wins. And of course, you've heard other assistants rumored to be leaving. Brad White was rumored to be leaving to go to Florida State this past offseason because they fired their defensive coordinator, but he stayed. And then for Vince Merrill, of course, at Louisville, he'll now be overseeing recruiting, roster management, and the transfer portal for the Cardinals. And it'll just be interesting to see what happens. I mean, Merrill was reported, for several jobs this past summer, like he was rumored to go to Bowling Green to be the head coach there, but that didn't happen. I think also was it Toledo or Troy to be the head coach. And, it's crazy to see that he's finally gone. And probably one of the reasons why is he probably saw the writing on the wall. And then, of course, he has a brighter future right now, I think, at Louisville than compared to UK because they've been on a downward trend since 22 going 7-6, 7-6, and then of course 4-8 this past year.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, I mean, there was numerous jobs I thought he'd end up leaving for, but I did notice earlier you said you do hope he does well and you wish the best for him. And there's part of me that does think that, but Drew Franklin said earlier he would boo his grandma if she coached for Louisville. I kind of agree with that also, where I think Vince, for most of the fan base, is probably going from one of the most beloved, just loved coaches ever in our program to
Mhm,
now arguably the most hated. Like just like that off of
you're
that
not
move.
wrong.
And um yeah, it's shocking. It really like it's just gonna be so weird to see him
Mhm,
in red.
mhm.
He's been
You're
in blue, black, white for 12 years now, and then and then here he goes, man.
you're
It's
not
gonna be
wrong.
crazy.
You're not wrong. And I think the most interesting part about this is if it is true, with him becoming the GM at Louisville, it avoided Marrow having to, pay a buyout clause at UK because I don't know how much his buyout clause was, but I mean, if that is true and Louisville avoided that to not pay his buyout, that's great for them because, if UK could have gotten however much it could have been, six figures back, a million back from Vince Marrow leaving early, but sadly, that's not even a possibility with UK as well.
Yeah. So you did hint that maybe this is the writing on the wall. Do you think this is the officially going to be like the sunset and the going out thing for Stoops here?
I don't want him to because, he's been around forever, but if he has another season where he goes 4-8, 5-7, I just don't see another way where Mark Stoops will return next season for the 2026 season. And I wish him the best and I want him to succeed. That's what I want all coaches to do. Like if he can get us to 7-8 wins this upcoming year, I want him back, but sometimes a lot of people see the writing on the wall, and this could be it. This could be it if he goes, another year 4-8 or 3-9. Obviously, I don't want him fired, but if he puts up disappointing numbers again, I don't see why he should be back the following year. The only obviously reason why he would be back is because of his buyout being still like 30 million after this year.
Yeah, no doubt. And no matter what the case is, he'll be getting some money for sure. But yeah, I think this is a group that I mean we'll talk a lot about football in the coming weeks and coming months, but this is kind of a group that I'm a lot higher on than I feel like a lot of the people are, and I'm more optimistic on them than most people are. And people have called me a sunshine pumper, but that's just the way I am. And
Uh-huh.
I think this group, even if they end up being very good, just that schedule
Mhm.
makes it super tough. I don't see, which I think that's gonna be a tough decision for Mitch Barnhart, deciding what is successful and what is worth keeping him around versus what is the fireable like outcome of the season. So I think he's gonna have a tough decision to make no matter what, unless this team just shocks the world and goes out and wins 7, 8 games somehow.
Yeah.
But that schedule does not do any favors for sure.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And like you were saying with Mitch Barnhart, I was reading the Herald Leader article. This came out a couple months ago. I can't remember when exactly. It was probably in April or May, but John Hale had a one-on-one interview or exclusive interview with Mitch Barnhart, and basically, Mark Barnhart said it was only a 1 year blimp this past year. I'm thinking to myself, if it was really a 1 year blimp, this program wouldn't be declining like it has been the past few years. Like if you go 8-4, 9-3 the past couple of years, yeah, fans would still be a little disappointed or sad, but you're performing above expectations. Like usually most fans want 6 or 7 wins, and I thought 9 wins was on the table back in when was it 22? Like if we defeat probably Ole Miss, away, we probably win 9 games at least that year, or maybe 10. But of
Yeah.
course we lose to Ole Miss, and then Will Levis is out against South Carolina the next game. We lose that game. We go 7-6, fire Rich Scangarello, and then we bring back Liam Cohen, which everybody thought he would be the answer. And then of course we go 7-6 again.
Yeah, it's been a wild little little run recently, especially like you mentioned with the offensive coordinators. But now getting Bush Hamden back for a year two, and him kind of being able to go out and pick his guys that he's wanting to run his system, and everything. I think that's one of the big things that has me super optimistic. Just being able to let him go out and just handpick his quarterback, because there was the Malik Murphy talk, but no, he wanted Zach Calzada instead. And getting a guy like Kendrick Law that's going to be a super fun player all year. And
Yeah.
yeah, I just think it's going to be a fun team offensively. There's going to be a lot of improvements. And then the O line
Mhm.
has been incredible. But it's just weird now that we're doing like this Vince Marrow episode, because Vince Marrow is probably a huge part in how a lot of those guys got to Lexington.
You're not wrong.
Um, so I hope there's no like late, it's not even spring anymore. I hope there's not any summer transfer entries like somehow super late. Um,
Mhm.
but I mean, the big dog had that effect. He was a very, people always described him as like a as another father to him, and
Yeah.
he was a very personable guy. So, uh, like I said, I think he's going to absolutely kill it at Louisville. Sadly,
I think
but
he.
yeah, I know I saw I think it was Matt Sack that tweeted it, where he was like, I don't know what I'm going to miss more. The tight end room being talked about, how it's so much greater this year and it's going to have 400 yards or so. And he just had this tweet of like
The
classic
three
Vince
star.
Marrow things.
Yeah. Grown man.
Yeah.
So that
Yeah.
was pretty funny and everything. I did see that Matt Scott tweet as well. And then speaking of players, I did reach out to quite a few players, so I'll give you some of their response. I reached out to Joshua Hines Allen, of course, Josh Allen whenever he was at Kentucky, and he just said to me, lost for words really, and he was one of the big, players that came to Kentucky. Obviously, he was like a zero-star player and then came out as a first-round draft pick, led Kentucky to their first ever 10-win season back in 2019, defeated Penn State, and he was one of the main reasons why, UK defeated Penn State that year. And, I wish him the best, and hopefully Allen does continue to do well in the NFL. Kayvasier Smoke also said to me, crazy feeling going to the rivalries, but I'm happy for Big Dog. He deserves it. So another
Yeah.
big time players. So it'll be interesting to see, what these former players say. I've been, like I said, reaching out. What do you have to say with, so far Smoke and Allen?
Man, I think I think for one, it speaks to how amazing of a person and coach he is, that they like feel that love for him, even though he is like Smoke said, going to the rival. But
Mhm.
um, yeah, I think we're in a similar boat. Like obviously we didn't have the same connection as they do, where
Yeah,
they played for him, but um, where we do, part of us is like, man, yeah, go kill it, except for one game next year. Just
except for one.
go do really well for 11 or 12 games, but there's the one game in late November we don't need you to do anything well in.
You're not
But
wrong.
yeah, no, it's super cool that those guys had that to say, and not that not that he needs some feathers in his cap or anything, but Vince Marrow is, like you said, a big reason. Josh Allen, who ended up being arguably the best football player of all time at this school,
You're
big
not
reason
wrong.
why he came here, and I'm pretty sure also Benny Snell. I'm pretty sure Vince was a big reason on why he did, and he's the school's all-time leading rusher. So
Yeah.
Vince did incredible things here. I don't know how much longer he's got in his career, but um, yeah, like nonetheless,
I
what
would,
a time in Lexington for him.
you're not wrong. I would say probably at max Vince Marrow has probably 10 years, but I would go more probably like 3 or 5, 3 to 5
Yeah.
years.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe 3 to 5 years, just kind of getting them through this. Not that it's a peak for Louisville, but like it feels like they are right now.
Hmm.
While the ACC is still
Bad.
respectable, it's respectable, but it's, yeah, like you said, bad. I didn't want to be the one to throw it down, but it is bad. But I
Basically,
think, yeah, while they're not very good, but still respectable and still get some respect from the playoff, um, I think him being there is going to be incredible, and then him and all the Brahms that are there are going
hmm
to do great things. And yeah, I think next year it's Clemson's conference to lose. I think Clemson's going to be a heavy, heavy, heavy favorite going into it. But other than that, I mean, it's up for grabs. I don't know if you trust in a Carson Beck led Miami team or a Miller Moss led Louisville team more. And honestly, I think I might lean Louisville because of the backfield, good receiver room, and obviously good coaching. Jeff Brown's been there for, was this year 3 now?
the three,
And
yeah,
he's
they went 10
he's
and
crushed it.
Yeah, I forgot what they went 10-4, I think the first year, or 9-4, something like that. Because I know they went to the ACC championship game. Of course, they lost that, I believe, and then they lost their bowl game as well. So I think 9-4 that.
Yeah. Yeah, they actually lost to Miller Moss too, so that's funny. But
Yeah,
yeah, that's the transfer portal in a nutshell. He went from throwing L's down to L's up. So
yeah. Oop, still else down here.
yeah, it's always L's down here.
Yeah, and then some other people I've reached out to that they've responded. DeAndre Square, who was also a big time player for Kentucky, was also on the 2021 team where, Kentucky defeated Iowa and went 10-3. He also said, I don't have too much of a reaction. It's a business. Gotta do what you feel is best as a Kentucky guy. Else down always. So he's also a part of the else down.
That's facts.
And then Jeff Badet also got back to me. He said, "I'm always happy for guys who choose to do things that fits best for them and their families. College football is turning into professional sports, and there's no one better than Coach Merrill who's know how professional sports is ran. Wish nothing but the best for him moving forward. But I'm also excited to see what Stoops has up his sleeve to get things still running smoothly while losing a big factor of our program." So I think Jeff Badet summarized it very well that, hopefully Mark Stoops can make changes, but, he wishes Vince Marrow the best at Louisville and see what he can do.
Yeah, no doubt. You were cutting in and out a little bit there. I'm gonna have you send me the full thing of what he said. But yeah, no, from what I heard, that's a great explanation and kind of summary of Vince. So, but yeah, like you said, I'm excited to see what Stoops is able to do. And I mean, you were the first to put it out and kind of spread the news about it. But we got another commitment tonight. So,
Yeah, yeah,
uh,
not wrong.
I saw Jack Pilgrim goofing around saying Vince Marrow whiff. So,
Vince with
we've already got that. Yeah, we've already got that going.
Yeah, I can definitely send you that comment. I apologize that my internet is cutting out. I don't know why.
No, no, you're good.
I'm the only person that lives here and everything, but yeah, and I know you spoke earlier about Kentucky, win loss. I was talking to my girlfriend over the weekend because we were traveling back, I think, back from the Reds game back to her parents' house and everything. And we were looking at, UC's schedule because she went to University of Cincinnati and UK's schedule, and like I was saying, at best, I see UK's record being 6-6 this year, but I could see another 4-8 year.
Oh yeah, 4-8's on the table, sadly. And honestly, that may not even be the four. I think 3-9 could be the four. I don't think that'll happen, but yeah, the ceiling isn't super high. That's not even saying that we're gonna be bad this year. It's just like you said, the schedule is just
Yeah.
not doing any favors.
Yeah, you're not wrong. The main thing is win, the three non-conference games and hopefully beat Louisville, but they even in 23, they should have probably defeated us. I was at that game and I couldn't believe it. I'm like, how did, uh, Louisville not win against us? It was at Louisville and that game was just crazy. And then, of course, the rumors kept swirling around at that time that Mark Stoops was probably going to leave for a different job. And he, almost did. He almost went to Texas A&M, but that didn't happen. Basically, the whole fan base revolted against that hire. That was a good time.
Yeah, that was a wild time. That whole day was crazy.
Yeah,
That whole day was wild.
because like I said, I saw the rumors swirling, not for A&M, but that he would probably take another job or potentially take another job. And literally, like 2 or 3 hours after that Louisville game, it was basically Mark Stoops is gone. He's going to Texas A&M, and then of course that luckily didn't happen.
Yeah, that did not happen, but now it's just like wild to think about like what if it did because
Hmm.
things would be a whole lot different. I know A&M, especially going into this year with Marcel Reed back and going into another year of the Mike Elko era. There's a lot of energy there. They have an early season game against Notre Dame to look forward to as well. And then for Kentucky fans, not that it's all gloomy, but it's not necessarily the brightest it's ever been. So it's just wild to think of what could have happened if he did end up going and headed to College Station and see what we would have done. I don't know if we would have just went John Sumrall or if we would have given the nod to Brad White. I don't know, but
Yeah.
it's crazy. Like the what ifs are wild with it.
maybe I shouldn't say luckily because how how this past year went and everything, but you're not wrong. I don't think we would have probably gone John Summerall just yet because I think he was still at Troy at that time. I
Yeah.
just took Tulane, of course, like this past year. So I think he was still at Troy, so I don't think we would have given him the nod just yet at that time, but probably like you said, Brad White, or we would have looked elsewhere for sure too. But yeah, it'll just be interesting to see what happens because just going back to the fact with Vince Marrow, he's the glue guy behind the scenes for Kentucky football, and so many players he recruited to Kentucky, and even whenever UK didn't get the recruit like right away, they would commit to Kentucky eventually, like Wandale Robinson, like he kept that connection with Vince Marrow over the years after he committed to Nebraska, played there for 2 or 3 years, and then came to Kentucky, like if it weren't for Vince Merrill and keeping that connection with Robinson, he probably wouldn't have ended up at Kentucky.
Yeah, what a fun time we had to experience with Wandell too. But like you said, if there's one word to describe Vince from all these years, it's definitely connections. Whether it was a guy that played 3, 4 years at UK, or like you said, went away somewhere else, but they were still connected with him and they just loved the bond that they had with him that they had built through their prior recruitment out of high school, and then they end up transferring over and doing something special here. So yeah, connection I think is a great word to kind of describe Vince.
And family, I would say too.
Yeah, family, big dog.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And I think the one other thing that probably, allowed Vince Merrill to leave is, UK wasn't performing the best, but he also wasn't receiving the extensions. Of course, Eric Walford just got an extension this past offseason. I was surprised by that, but I think that was another reason why Merrill probably left. He probably thought, hey, I probably can't get another extension at UK. Might as well, cut ties and go elsewhere if I can.
Yeah. Yeah, I get that 100%. I mean, if he kind of thought it was kind of the end of the rope here and he wasn't going to be able to move up much more, which there's not a whole lot more you can do. Like we said, like getting over $1 million. But yeah, maybe he thought he deserved a little bit more, and then he's getting a bigger role, I guess, in a way, um, over there at Louisville. So it'll be weird. It'll definitely be weird. But yeah, big dog. He's obviously gonna like have a weird kind of perspective from the fan base where he was beloved. He was always chanted at whether it was basketball games, taking recruits there, or I mean, he's got a bunch of famous videos for our fans that we've also used a ton. The Fritos video,
I used
the one
that
of him. Yeah,
before
you used that earlier.
before I knew Vince Merrill was leaving because I knew we were about to get another commit later today, and like I used that video because big dog, those Fritos.
Yeah,
Little did I know he would end up at Louisville.
yeah, he's taking those Fritos down 64 with him. But yeah, yeah, there's also the video of I think it was the Louisville like tunnel or something that we were, but there's that video of him saying I can't remember what he even says in it, but that's a famous video. And then man, just a legend, honestly.
You're not wrong. He's definitely a legend. So, what do you think is next for UK? Obviously, they'll need to get a new, tight ends coach because, he was the tight end person, associate head coach and recruiter. So, what do you think might be next for UK?
Yeah, I honestly don't know where they even begin to look. I don't know what Stoops has in mind or even the staff entirely on who they'll go after, but I think it's an enticing job, one because of the SEC, but also it's a young good tight end room with all the names that you've got in there. I think it's going to be a fun tight end room that somebody can do a lot of work with. And even if this is the end of the Stoops era, maybe it's a job that they're able to keep through the next head coach, and they want to stay for that reason. Also, like, yeah, the young tight ends, I think it'll be super fun. So I think they'll be able to go get somebody good. I don't think it's going to be like going to be scraping the bottom of the barrel by any means, but especially they're not going to make one point whatever million that he
Yeah,
made, but they'll be able to throw around a hefty check that they aren't
probably,
going to have to pay the buyout, like you said. So,
probably like
um,
100,000 they could throw at somebody. So,
yeah, yeah, exactly. So I think I think they'll get somebody good. I don't know who it'll be, and obviously the next few weeks or something we'll learn more. But it's just a weird time being June. Now we're looking for a tight end coach. There's going to be people that have connections with their programs already, and they may not want to leave. But
Yeah.
I think we'll get somebody good. I'm very optimistic about that. I think Stoops will get somebody that'll fill that role great.
Maybe you'll be somebody from Youngstown, Ohio.
Yep. Need that Youngstown, Ohio connection. Need those 3 stars.
Oh yeah, you're not wrong. But yeah, like you said, I think, if UK wants to pay, a coach to come to UK, they can get somebody. But it'll be interesting to see who they replace Vince Marrow with. Obviously, I don't have any tight end names that I can think of. And then of course, my person who I go through for my source, he probably won't have too many sources now with Vince Marrow leaving because basically I got my information from him and then he would get his information from Vince and everything because he had his phone number, and of course he would talk to Vince every now and then. So there goes my source for UK football now,
Hey,
everybody.
you may be able to give out early Louisville news
Oh
at
yeah,
this point.
you're not wrong. Early
But I
Louisville.
do have one thing that popped in my mind. It would just I don't even know if this is like even makes any sense. But honestly, if this is Stoops last year, why not? What about CJ Conrad?
I think he's at EKU right
Hey,
now.
that's what I was thinking.
Yeah.
He was a what
He was,
was his role technically with the Giants? He did something with the Giants, didn't he?
I know he was a player for them at one point, and I know he was a grad assistant at UK as well. Like he was the tight ends grad assistant for UK at one point for like a year or two, and then of course he got a full-time job at EKU to be like their tight ends coach.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I honestly wouldn't be opposed if they're struggling to find somebody, then just bring home a legend.
Yeah, bring home a
But
legend. You're not,
yeah,
or Brandon Bates, he was also a legend.
hey, he's playing good with the Browns. It looks like in isn't that who he's with, right?
I know he got picked up from the Browns. I didn't know if he was still in the league or not.
I've been seeing a lot of like the OTAs where it's Shador Sanders just throwing dimes to him. So I'm just like, man. And honestly, ironically, it was the big dog that was the one tweeting about him that I would see. But yeah, I mean, we've had a lot of good tight ends that honestly the fan base was a little upset that they didn't get used more while they were here. But yeah, I think there's a lot of names to kind of pick from if we
Yeah,
need to
you're
get somebody.
And I think to wrap this podcast up almost, I would say the biggest concern right now for Mark Stoops and UK is can he keep the rest of the ship together? And then if he can keep the rest of the ship together, can he also make sure it doesn't, drown in the water?
Yeah, yeah, holding it together, man. Like this is I mean, they've chosen to be very silent this offseason. And it's been their choice. And I honestly think it's the right decision instead of just trying to put out a ton of false narrative stuff. But like you said, holding it together and keeping it afloat and just kind of seeing what he can do. Like, I mean, this staff, I would imagine the rest of them are tight. I mean, he's got his brother, he's got Wolford, like you mentioned earlier, that he's very close to, Bush Hamden now in his second year. So I think it's a tight staff overall, but now losing Vince, it's just kind of like, man, there's just a lot of questions forming. It feels like, but
Yeah.
um, yeah, we'll see what happens. I don't. I'm interested to just see who they're going to fill the spot with, and um, kind of. I mean, they're going to have to do some recruiting because I think whether Stoops is in his last year or not, they're still going to be recruiting.
Yeah.
Like he's back another year. So I'm curious who's going to be kind of the lead recruiter at this point.
Yeah, you're not wrong. And UK right now only has three commitments right now with in-state offensive tackle, offensive line. Jarvis Strickland, I think he's a 4-star. He might be a 3-star, but we only have him. Then we also have Davis McRae. He just committed last week, I believe, wide receiver. And then, of course, we just got our new wide receiver with Prince Jean. So we've got two commitments from the wide receiver room right now. So Damian Washington is doing some work right now for UK on that side. So far, Kentucky football, they only have three commits, and we'll see what happens from there. But to wrap this podcast up, I think you have to say, what we've been saying before, family connection with Vince Merrill, but he was definitely more than just a recruiter. He was the coacher, the closer, the identity, I feel like. And now, of course, he's going to be wearing red at Louisville, and it's going to suck. And if Mark Stoops can't stabilize the foundation fast, Big Blue Nation could be in for a rocky ride this upcoming year.
Yeah, I know that Jeff Ruby's in Louisville's got to be super excited though. So they're probably more fired up than all of Louisville is. But
You're not wrong, yeah, but I believe Vince Marrow is going to do great at Louisville, and who knows, maybe Louisville will be pushing for the college football championship. Like, of course, it's expanding to I think 16 teams soon. I believe it's at 12 now,
yeah,
but
it'll be 12 this year, and then next year it'll go to 16. But
yeah.
yeah, they could be. They could be a sneaky little team.
You're not wrong. But all right, let's end this podcast because we've been talking for about 30 minutes. But I hope you all enjoyed the new graphics that I made. I know we didn't have any graphics on our first episode, but if you're watching on YouTube, I made some graphics, so definitely enjoy, I hope you all enjoyed that. And then of course, we have another podcast coming up soon. We're expected to interview somebody tomorrow, former Kentucky basketball player. Hopefully that ends up working, and we'll have that podcast probably uploaded later this week. I probably won't upload it tomorrow, but we'll interview him and we'll go from there. And hopefully everybody has a great rest of your week, and hopefully UK can have a great year this upcoming year in football, but who knows what will happen.
Yeah. Thank you all for tuning in. I hope you all enjoyed, just like what you said.
Yeah. All right. Well, that's the wraps for episode 2. I'm Chris Beesmore, and you are.
Cameron Waddle.
Thank you all for watching and listening.
See y'all.